Good Friday morning to you. Yesterday we talked about Hezekiah. Today I want to skip over a couple generations as we make our way to Josiah. In case you feel like you're missing something, this is 2 Kings 21. I'm skipping over Manasseh. Manasseh is King Hezekiah's son. He is made king at 12 years old and he rules for 50 years. Now, where his father had done great in the eyes of the Lord, Manasseh goes very backwards from all that his father had done. And in fact, he takes on even more evil that had been cleansed from the temple when Hezekiah was made king. Ammon comes after Manasseh, and then we get to Josiah. Josiah is king of Judah. He's made king at 8 years old. Can you imagine? A boy king. He's made king at 8 years old, and he rules for 31 years. And we read right off the bat in 2 Kings chapter 22 that he does what is right in the sight of the Lord. And he follows the way of his father David. Now, this is many generations removed from David, but as it is in the Hebrew story, he's following a string. It's one thing I appreciate most about how Jews tell their story is that it doesn't matter how many generations are removed from the biblical witness of faithfulness, they cling to that as part of their own history. If you attend Shabbat Shalom, which is a Friday evening service, if you attend a Seder meal, which is the Passover service, the prayers that you say are prayers of your family, and they are prayers that are deeply connected to the historical narrative of the Old Testament when we were captive in Egypt. And Jews do a really good job of clinging to their story as part of their own story, even today. It's something I lament that we as Christians don't do that as much, and we kind of take it for granted, but there's power in that. So they acknowledge that Josiah is a continuation of David, and he does everything that is good in the sight of the Lord. He's very faithful. He goes and he discovers the book of the Lord in chapter 22, verse 8. The high priest, Hilkiah, says to Shaphan, the secretary, I've found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. This is the early version of Deuteronomy is what we think. So there's all this prophetess and propheters, and they're speaking what God had desired, and Josiah is responding. The thing I want to focus on for Josiah on this Friday is really chapter 23. And if you have some time today, I encourage you to read through. Josiah reforms all of Judah. So he commands the priests and the second order and the thresholds to go through all of the temple, all of the vessels that have been consecrated to Baal, to the foreign gods. He asks them all to be taken out. He breaks down all of the offerings, not just inside the temple, but outside the temple. He gets rid of temple prostitutes, which is a whole nother subject that we never talk about. And in some ways I'm kind of thankful for, but that's a whole side conversation. He gets rid of everything. And what you'll read in chapter 22, chapter 23, is how he does it. What you will read several times is that he takes these vessels, he takes these icons, and he goes out to the Wadi Kidron, and he beats it down into the sand. He burns it, and he beats it down to the sand, and then the ashes he takes back over to Bethel. So there's two significant locations as he's cleansing Judah from all of the idolatry that's existed. First of all, the Wadi Kidron is this valley that exists between the Mount of Olives and Jerusalem. It's actually pretty extraordinary. You walk from Jerusalem, which is like on a hill, and for us who live in Salem here, this is a great imagery for us because these hills are very similar to what we experience here in West Salem, where some of our neighborhoods are up on a hill, and then we have these valleys in between the hills. And these are they can have a 500-foot elevation, but they're kind of a rolling hill. And that's what you have here in Israel. The Temple Mount is on one hill in Jerusalem, and you go down through the Wadi Kidron, up the Mount of Olives, and you sit on another hill overlooking the area, the vastness of the area. So Josiah, when he's cleaning the temple, he burns everything. He takes the remnants down to the Wadi Kidron. He stomps it out. Now, the Wadi Kidron will be known throughout the history of the Old Testament as the place where idolatry reigns. When infanticide is practiced by foreign nations, they often would slaughter the innocents in the Wadi Kidron. When Herod demands that all the baby boys less than 2 years old, when he's seeking out Jesus, when he has them slaughtered, they take them to the Wadi Kidron. The Wadi Kidron is this valley that exists between the Mount of Olives and Jerusalem. The thing that's really cool about it, significant plot twist, is that Jesus will walk through the Wadi Kidron after he enjoys his Passover with his disciples, after he names his as his betrayer. They will sing hymns, and they'll walk through the Wadi Kidron up to the Mount of Olives, where he will pray. He'll sweat blood. He'll have this moment of deprivation. Father, if it's your will, take this cup. And then when they arrest him, they will walk back through the Wadi Kidron up to where Jesus ultimately will be crucified. So the Wadi Kidron is this Passover in some ways. It's a Passover from good to evil, evil to good. And Jesus redefines this space because of where he travels between his Last Supper with his disciples and his passion and resurrection. But this place is solidified then by Josiah and how he cleanses the temple. He breaks everything down. He cleanses it. He beats it down in the Wadi Kidron. He takes his ashes to Bethel. This is where Jacob instituted an altar after he had wrestled with God. And this is how he will reinstate or restore the people to God. You will have prophets that are in the midst of this time. Nahum and Jeremiah will both speak through here. You get a little bit of Zechariah's prophecy through chapter 23 of 2 Kings. Nineveh falls during this time, so there's a lot of history that is happening. But these are the verses I want to highlight. In 2 Kings chapter 23, from verses 24 and 25, it says, "Moreover, Josiah put away all the mediums, wizards, terrapin, idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, so that he established the words of the law that were written in the book of the priest Hilkiah had found in the house of the Lord." So this is the book of Deuteronomy that's found in the house of the Lord. "Before him there was no king like him, who turned to the Lord with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might, according to the law of Moses. Nor did anyone arise like him after." That's a pretty bold statement, right? The author here in 2 Kings says something similar about his grandfather, Hezekiah. But the language is reminiscent of what was spoken in 1 Kings about David. And that's the connection. The focus is on how God has continued a thread that will go from King David all the way to the birth of Jesus. And that thread is solidified in King Josiah. Can you relate? So here's a fascinating thing about King Josiah that I mentioned at the beginning. He was 8 years old when he began, and he served for 31 years. At the end of King Josiah's reign, he was still much younger than I am even today. And for many of you listening, you're probably thinking, wow, that was a long time ago before I saw 39, right? But look at the greatness that he accomplished. You know, Jesus will later say to his disciples, if you were to enter the kingdom of God, you have to enter as that like a child. He would tell his disciples, do not withhold the children from them. Let them come to me, for such as theirs is the kingdom of God. There's something to be said about the innocence of faith, about the naivety that exists when we simply turn our heart, soul, and mind to the Lord. It's easy for us to get in the way of what that looks like because all of our worldly experiences, our adult lives, they jade us and they create rough edges, and those snag on the simplicity of faith. But God calls us and reminds us, and leaders like King Josiah, that really it's pretty simple. We come to the God as if we were a child, learning everything all over again. As you end your week, as you think about your week and all that you've accomplished at work or at home, or maybe in your family life, maybe you're getting ready for Thanksgiving and you're navigating a whole lot of different moving pieces, I just commend you to sit for a moment and look at your life and the world around you, not just through the eyes in which you live every day, but also from that of a child's perspective. Does it change? Do you see God at work in a more playful way? Do you see God working within you to bring you a joy that might normally go unnoticed because you've been a little calloused by this world or a little jaded by the experiences you've had? King Josiah, he could have continued the path of Manasseh and Amon, but he didn't. He came as a child before the Lord and committed himself to him, and his kingship was a beautiful reflection of what that meant. We all have the power to do that in our own lives, to come to the Lord, no matter how old or young we might be, with a childlike faith, saying, Lord, teach me, renew in me, change me, transform me, help me to see as you would have me see. And if that means peeling away the generations or even the years and help me to see as I once did as a child, let that be our prayer today. Hope you have a great Friday. Can't wait to see you on Sunday.